Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. My name is Katana Malinowski, and I am the host of Transformational Art with Katana, making the unmanageable manageable. Welcome. And I have with me here today my friend, Christy Holt. She is a happiness coach and podcaster on a mission to helping people create their happy. Thank you for
Yes,
being here.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so looking forward to wherever this conversation takes us today. I know it's going to be valuable. So thanks for having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, we are going to get to know so much more about you. And I just want to remind my listeners that the podcast is about all things transformational. So it's people who've transformed, people who help people transform, in all modalities to transformation, alternative and otherwise. And we are going to begin by learning more about who Christy is as a person.
Yes. Well, I don't even quite know where to begin, how far back to go. I mean, I think life is a whole journey of transformation. If you seek out those opportunities, they are always available. So couple of massive areas where I've sort of experienced transformation. One in my career, I suppose you could say. I've sort of been a serial entrepreneur, but I also have a business degree. I became a professional accountant, and I did spend a chunk of time in the professional accounting world. It was not for me. There were facets of that work that I really did enjoy. Ironically enough, they are the same facets that I most love and enjoy about the work I'm doing now, because they are in the realm of mentoring, teaching, training, coaching. So I also I've taught piano for 3 decades. I know I'm really aging myself there, but that's the truth. I started when I was 14. So I'm almost at 30 years of teaching piano lessons off and on. I love seeing the transformation as well. And actually, that's one of the reasons, or one of the things really that I love most about teaching piano, is seeing the growth of someone who previously did not have any skills or understanding, and to take that and flip it and to give them even the smallest base of skills, and how big of a transformation that creates in their ability to create music, to play music, to experience music. So that's sort of been like an ongoing thread throughout my life, really. I also taught accounting at post-secondary level for a while. I am a teacher through and through. So, I'm very grateful for all of those opportunities, as they sort of contributed to who I am today. They all taught me massive lessons. I also, I don't want to say survived, because I think it's actually so much more than surviving, but I did get myself out of an unhealthy marriage, which to me is sort of feels like a really big accomplishment, because when I was in it, it felt very much like I was stuck. I felt very hopeless and helpless. And I realize now how much of that I was creating myself, and how my perception of everything dramatically impacted that in every possible way. But when I was in it, you don't know what you don't know. You just know that you're struggling, that you're having a hard time, that you're overwhelmed, that you're, anxious all the time. At some points I had some physical symptoms even that didn't make any sense. Like I would have like random rashes, and my guts were always a mess. And, I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, we'll do all this tests and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't show anything. So, there was no medical reason for a lot of it, but there certainly was like an anxiety reason for it, because I was stuck and overwhelmed and overthinking, and my brain was, holy smokes, survival mode to the nth degree. I was completely stuck in that survival mode. So, I wasn't surviving, and then I moved out of that. That's been my biggest transformation, is really just learning to accept myself and love myself, lean into who I am, and just move forward into more of a state of being more me, because there's a lot of freedom in that. And actually, I think that what a lot of people are seeking and want, even when they're feeling stuck and overwhelmed and kind of trapped in their current circumstances, the things that they really truly want, love, peace, joy, fulfillment, success, abundance, whatever you're sort of seeking in your world, in your experience. And oftentimes we're looking everywhere else for it. But the truth is it's within us. Mm-hmm. And we are the alchemists in our life. We have the power to create that. We have the power to shift our perceptions. We have the power to completely change our experience if we're willing to take that on and own that power. Because if we're not, it isn't going to happen for us. So, if you want to shift from surviving to thriving, you need to step in and become the creator and take control.
Oh, so absolutely true. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned. One is the stepping out of, the toxic marriage, and owning your part of it. And I'll come back to that. And you also mentioned through that description, finding more of who you are. And I do know also that you are a mom.
I am. I have 3 of my own sons. They're teenagers, and I have a bonus son. So we have four teenage boys in the house. My partner and I, who I met, and he's the absolute best and most amazing human I met after leaving said not great relationship, and so grateful because, we have a connection just like no other. Maybe we'll circle back to that. Maybe we won't. It's totally okay. But we are just really here about living life. And yes, we have these kids, and it's part of an adventure. That's for sure. They're age 12 to 15 at the moment. So we have some interesting dynamics for sure. And juggling parenthood, like, honestly, I think parenthood is actually the greatest and most important transformational journey we could possibly go on, because man, did they ever teach us a lot about ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I agree. And in the discovering more about yourself, I want to bring a little more of that out. Yeah. And what does that look like? Are you talking about maybe really realizing what things that you actually liked that maybe might have been influenced otherwise from somebody else, or, what does that look like?
I think it's a whole bunch of different deprogramming, sort of, if you will, because there's so many pieces of us that are built on our past experiences. And some of those were not positive experiences, or they were just really limiting experiences. So maybe they're positive, but still limiting. So we have this idea about ourselves, and very often we'll learn something along the way, or we'll have an experience that shapes the way that we view ourselves. We have, for so much of life, been taught to fit in and to toe the party line and to stay inside the safe box, instead of giving people the space to explore and be unique and be different. And so I think a lot of us have sort of created our identity based on expectations of others, making other people happy, based on experiences that maybe our past experience didn't go the way we hoped. And so now we're shutting down all possibility. There's so many parts here. And just the fact is, the way our brain is wired, it's wired for efficiency. So it'll take those past experiences, those past beliefs, all those things that we believe to be true. And let's just be clear, everything is a story. Okay. Right. Everything is a story. It's just which stories we've adopted as our truth. And again, it's truth to somebody anyways. Whatever we take in and adopt as our truth will form the basis for our identity. And so when you start sort of stripping away those bits, you start questioning and starting to get curious about, why do I hold this belief, and where did that come from? Especially in the areas of things that maybe we are noticing that we're running up against a wall, or we're having repetitive struggles or ongoing challenges, or, oh my gosh, the same lesson keeps coming up. How many times do I have to have this experience before I'm going to get it through my head and make the shift? Right. So I think that all sort of plays in, and it's sort of just an unpackaging, uncovering, stripping away what is not actually us and taking it back to the root of who we always were. In my belief, in my understanding, the way I look at it is that at the root of all of it, we're pure love, really, right? If you think back to what we were and how we would have identified ourselves as a brand new baby before all of these things piled on, we're just pure love. That's why people can't not smile and they look at a baby, like, because they're just an expression of pure love. And how can you not just be like, like, I'm not even a big baby person, but like, there's something about a baby that just feels so pure and so innocent, and it just oozes with love. So yeah, I think that's what I was going to say about that. I could always talk. I could go on, but
yeah, you made me remember that there's two absolute things that I love about babies. I'm with you there. You know,
I don't want any more. I'll be very clear about that.
Yeah. I'm into the grandparent stage. I'm good, you know.
Yeah.
We can have more little ones down the line. And one of the things that I really fell in love with is baby feet.
Oh yeah.
There's something so adorable and so
like, you just like want to nibble it.
just baby feet and baby laughs.
Yes, the baby giggles, they are just pure joy. Pure joy. Like,
bottle it up. Because
yeah,
I get some of that all the time.
Oh man, if we could like bottle that up and sell it, that would make a boatload of money.
And
that joy,
happiness.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
We could change the world with baby laughs. And I since I brought it up, and I do want to revisit it with regard to the not so great relationships, and for some of us, you know, it was really toxic. I do for me, it was a toxic marriage of 31 years, and I do own my part of that. And I've also learned to have compassion for myself. I'm in the forgiveness stage of understanding that I did the best I could with the tools I had at the time.
Yeah. And I really think that that's where we're all on a journey, right? And we are all, I believe, because I think it's just a positive way to look at things. And the more positively we can approach things, the better our experience is going to be of the things. Now, I really do believe that we are all doing the best we can with the resources that we have. And when we keep moving forward, we have opportunities all the time to learn or to practice grace, forgiveness, compassion. And that comes to us, for ourselves, first and foremost, but also it extends to everyone and everyone out in the world, because everyone needs that love and that compassion, that acceptance. And, you know, I think a universal need is for people to be seen and heard and accepted as they are, which is a real struggle, actually, the way that society is sort of structured at this point, because we've been told to wear the masks and to sit down and to be quiet and to not express things that are outside the box, or, you know, might upset someone else, or, you know, all of these things, really. So we've been going out there, we've been wearing the masks, we've been, you know, filtering our words, our experiences, and everything else through this sort of lens of like, okay, well, what looks best on the outside, what makes other people happy, and often to the detriment of figuring out what actually makes us happy. Where do we find and create our own happiness? And I don't know, it's not out there. That's all I have to say, is it's not out there. Stop seeking for it out anywhere else outside of yourself, because it's all within you. You have the power. You take that back and you can create it from within. So, you know, we're really in a world of that seeking, always seeking the next thing. It is a jockey for a superior position. It is a plea for people to like us. It is a desire to measure up, be good enough, be perfect. I don't know what perfect is because I don't think it exists. Um, so that makes that really impossible standard to even be striving for. But yet here we are. It's sort of the standard measure that we're all chasing, is to get to that thing, and then we will experience love, peace, joy, happiness, fulfillment, abundance. But the truth is, it's right here, right now, if you want it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is part of, learning the healing process, which is where I was going to go with. In my case, it was a toxic marriage of 31 years. It was toxic. I won't say that it wasn't toxic. We were both toxic to ourselves, first and foremost, and then to each other. And there was narcissism and gaslighting to the point where I actually didn't even know if I was real or not anymore. And that was that moment that I woke up, when I'm pinching myself and calling people and going, can you please convince me that I'm in this real realm that we call life? So I know that I'm not just asleep and dreaming, because I have very lucid dreams. And I got to the point where I couldn't quite decipher. And I was like, okay, this is a time that needs to come to an end. In my journey of healing, I have learned forgiveness, and I've also learned to see people through the lens of innocence, their own and mine.
Yeah.
Which allows me to see where they were coming from and doing the best that they could do. So I'm able to see the people that did the hurting. We're all trying to get our needs met, and we don't necessarily do the best at doing that at times.
We weren't given the right tools sometimes, and we're often working out of our own traumas and our own wounding. So, we're just responding in the best way we know how. And sometimes, sometimes it comes out of left field. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it's not received the way we feel like it's going to be received. There's always two ends to that, right? So it's interesting because, like I say, like everything is a story. And even when you have two people together in a relationship, and I will be the first to own that I contributed to my marriage being the way that it was, what I tolerated, what I accepted, what I allowed, the way I interacted, the way I responded and dealt with different scenarios that, looking back now for us to be like, oh my gosh, well, yeah, I mean, I can own that I had some growing to do myself. And the truth is we both do, we're always growing and learning. But, to just say, when I was in it though, I was very much like you. At many points, I was sort of questioning my reality and how the fuck did I get here? Because, like, an analogy I often use, because it makes sense and a lot of people can really relate to it, is, when you're driving home and you get home and you don't actually remember stopping at any of the red lights or the stop signs, or you went on autopilot and you arrived at home and you're like, oh, I'm here. Oh, I hope I stopped at all the red lights. I don't really remember them. And that's kind of an analogy or a metaphor for how I felt, because I got to this place where I didn't freaking recognize myself. I didn't recognize the relationship I was in. I was questioning my own sanity, my own ability to interpret reality was in question. I was like, is this like not making sense to me? Am I in some kind of twilight zone where things are like just not normal anymore? Like I just is so confusing. And so, it was just such a hot mess. And so truly what got me out of that and into thriving was shifting my perspectives and learning to love and accept myself, learning to, oh my gosh, ask for what I needed. That was a big one, and clearly express what I needed. And I actually like to think I'm a very good communicator. And so I don't think it was necessarily an inability to communicate on my end. However, there is always two parties in a communication. And if the other party is not understanding or not receiving that communication in the intended way, then there's a lot of room for issues in between. Right. So I will own that I thought I was doing the best that I could with the way that I was communicating. I know I had coping mechanisms that were not great. Like I'm kind of a runner. I don't like conflict. I don't like having confrontation or conflict. I have no problem disagreeing with someone. Okay. So like make that really clear. I will debate the shit out of something, and I have no problem if we have completely opposite views, and I can have a respectful conversation about that. And because I actually feel like one of my gifts is actually to be able to see and understand different perspectives and how they might come to be, and maybe find a common ground or create some understanding. But I forgot where I was going exactly with that. But yeah, I just think like, figuring out myself, what I needed, and having enough confidence to ask for what I wanted instead of simply being the martyr, the people pleaser, the, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with being a nurturer, but there is a problem when you're nurturing to the extent of cutting yourself off and to the cost of your own needs. So finding that right balance was really crucial for me, and moving out of the situation that I didn't know how I got into. It made me take a look inside. It made me realize that all the things that I was looking for outside of myself, I was actually giving power away, my power, just giving it away like freebies all over the place to people around me, to my circumstances, to the identity I had built for myself. And it was all really limiting me and keeping me stuck in that survival pattern. So making that shift, having that transformation, be like, you know what? I did the best I could with what I had. I'm still doing the best that I can with the resources I have. I am very growth minded, very intentional about continuing to grow and expand and learn. And I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I know that my journey is not over, but coming out of that and having that experience, just, it made it all the more important for me to give back and to help other people. And this whole teacher phase, or, the commonality of the teaching, mentoring, and coaching that followed me through my various sort of jobs, if you will. And I still teach piano. So, it's kind of still there. And I love that. But that all of those things led to where I am today. And the more experiences I have, the more eager I am to share the lessons I've learned in any kind of hope that I can make an impact. If I can help one woman in a shitty relationship who forgot who she is, I call it like, or, sometimes is when we become a mom, it's really common for us to kind of forget who we are. We put our family first. We're very focused on fulfilling their needs, and not necessarily making sure that we're covering our own needs. So making that shift, I want them to know they are worthy of having that, and that they can have all of the things their hearts desire. And in fact, they may be suffering from just a momitis, but that's because they just need to bring it back to who they are and figure out, what parts of them they've been hiding. Because when you kind of start leaning into that and owning who you are and asking for what you need, then you take your power back. And that's where you can, create the happy life and relationship and business and all of the pieces that kind of come together from that place of power, and truly become, the alchemist or the creator in your life.
And this is a perfect segue into my next question. And before I do that, I just want to say that, yes, that being silent is not how we create that happy.
No.
The healing is from actually standing into our power.
Yeah. Finding our voice and using it.
Finding our voice and using it. And that means both within and without. And it helps the healing process for everyone. It creates that beautiful ripple effect that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And with that being said, what is it that makes you happy?
Well, I see people kind of putting this question out there a lot. And honestly, my intention to be happy is what creates my happy. I have the power. I know the things that make me feel good and alive and excited and at peace. I think both of the, like those things can also coexist. To me, like the ideal like emotional space to be in is sort of like excited calmness, which sounds contradictory, I realize, but it's kind of, the way I describe things with my partner. I feel like I have butterflies when I'm around him, yet I feel at home. So it's sort of this idea that it's exciting, it's expansive, it feels good, and it feels abundant. And it also feels comfortable, like home, like I'm in the right place where I'm supposed to be. Now, I love adventures. So I'll always find a huge amount of that sort of love on, and that happy and that peace when I'm adventuring and exploring new things. I love hiking. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's like hiking in the mountains is like an extended meditation for me. It's glorious. It is a great time for me to connect with my partner because we do that together, and or to just reconnect with myself as well, because there's lots of time for just quiet reflection and looking around and really taking in all of the world's amazing, amazing beauty. So yeah, that's pretty much, I really think that if you want to find happy, you will find it. It is there. It is in the tiny, mundane, everyday things. If you look for it, you're going to find it.
Like baby.
I mean, inside, not, like I say, you're not seeking all of it outside of you, but if you go within and you intentionally set about discovering it where it exists, you will find it there.
I agree. And discovering that was one of the best things, because when you're, and it's always there. Sometimes we just need a little help seeing, we already know that.
So like if anybody's listening and they're like, I'm not really sure how to find that. Like, here's one way you can sort of do that for yourself. You just close your eyes and take yourself back to a moment where you felt excited or really truly loved, where you felt really seen and accepted, just a moment that you felt like everything was all coming together and you felt alive. If you can think back to that, you can create that emotion inside your body. There you go. Now you've created that happiness again. And now you can use that to find other things that bring alive those emotions in you. So powerful, really. And what we imagine in our brain feels as real to us as what's going on around us. So every opportunity, the more and more and more you can intentionally create those emotions inside, the more they will reflect and you will experience them on the outside, not the other way around. Exactly. It's not about experiencing it on the outside and then you'll feel whole on the inside. It's the opposite. Feel it on the inside.
Starts from within. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, on the flip side of that, what is it that makes you sad or angry?
I think I would say that the thing that breaks my heart the most is just general intolerance and people who maybe, and again, they're doing the best they can with the resources they have. They just literally don't know any better. So it's not that I'm like angry and I think they're bad people, but I think they've just sort of gotten off track somewhere and they just probably don't quite realize that that's the case, right? And I just think that if everyone could come to the same agreement that we're all doing the best that we can with the resources we have, we could really approach people with a lot more grace, a lot more empathy, a lot more compassion and understanding. We would, instead of making assumptions and accusations, we would be getting curious and asking questions so that we can really listen and understand where they're coming from. Because I see a lot of combative conversation on the internet, especially people really seem to think that they're hiding behind their computer and that their words aren't hurtful or I don't know. But that's not really the point. But the point is people are very naturally combative. And instead of seeking to listen and understand and getting curious, they are coming from a perspective of, I must be right all the time. And if I'm not right, I'm a failure. Again, it's this perfectionistic perception that we're aiming for being good enough, being smart enough, being whatever enough. And we're always going to fall short if that's the standard. And we're trying to measure up to something that's not actually possible because we're humans. We're humans on a human journey and experiencing things, as we go. I really don't feel like we're broken. It's not about broken. It's about really just embracing our wholeness and all of those parts. We're the light and the dark. When we bring all of those parts together and we accept all of the parts of us, then we can be free of all of those limits that we have had previously holding us back.
I love that. And I just want to touch on, no, we're not broken. As we were talking about many times throughout this, and my mentor, Rhonda Britton, talks about, is that we're not broken. We're whole and complete as we are. And that's, of course, the first part of bringing awareness. And then when we bring willingness, then healing is going to come naturally from there. And understanding that we're just all at different points.
Yeah, we're all at different spots on our journey. Right.
And
we've all had a unique experience. Literally, no one has had the exact same experience. So, it's not like we're seeking to fully know the circumstance. It's relating on similar experiences and listening so that we can hear what another's experience is. Because listen, we might have gone through a very similar situation, but our experience of that similar situation could be incredibly different from someone else, right? So really listening is how we can get a better understanding of how did they perceive it? How did they experience it? What was the meaning to them? What impact did it create in their life? Because it might be very different than we might assume or expect.
And before I ask my next question, I just want to touch on that a little bit. Hearing, asking questions to hear rather than asking questions to ask a question, because I find that space happens frequently. And I think that's where a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of reactionary responses come from. And I use that because response is something that's more mindful. You're taking the time. You've heard somebody. So you're able to take in all of the information, whereas reaction is, oops, you hit a trigger word. I don't like that word. I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
Because now it's going to something else that's related to something entirely different.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling like this, so I'm going to react.
Yeah, like it evokes the survival response. And then when we respond from that survival position, we're not in our power. We're not even rationally thinking. Our brain is literally like, respond this way or you're going to die. Like it's that ridiculously dramatic in that initial, they say that the amygdala takes over for about 60 to 90 seconds. We're in that state, flight, fight, or freeze. We're not really in control necessarily in that outset. So we have to be really mindful to let that pass, take a moment to, reflect before we respond. So I think that I really like that. And I often refer to react versus respond as well, because it is more mindful. It's more, okay, well, what do I want to accomplish this with what I'm going to say or how I'm going to act in the most favorable possible way to result in the outcome instead of just reacting without that thought.
And before I move on, I had an example of that yesterday, or it was either that or this morning. It's been kind of a crazy 24 hours. And I made a phone call and I was on with a representative. Oh, it was last night. And of this company, I needed to get a situation resolved. And they were scripting. They weren't hearing me.
Yeah.
And I finally said in a stern, not rude, but a very stern parental voice. One of the
mom voice.
As moms, we earn this thing.
Yeah.
And in a very stern voice, I said, you're not hearing me. You're not listening to hear me.
Yeah.
I need you to hear me. and this is what I need from you. And I got the result I was looking for without them freaking out. And we were both able to say, thank you, have a great day.
Yeah.
And, that made all the difference in a conversation that otherwise could have turned around into a yelling match and nobody getting anything that they wanted out of that. And in the past, I've been there. I didn't have the tools even a year and a half ago to actually do that. So I brought that up because it was one of those moments I was like, yes,
And there's actually like a much greater ability to be empathetic when you aren't listening simply to respond. What I mean is if you're constantly thinking about the next thing that you're going to say, or you're still thinking about what you said last, and you're not really hearing what they're saying, you are already formulating the next thing you're going to say. And I'm guilty of having done this without a doubt. I think we all have. It's, I think, a natural part of, life and experience, but being aware that that's what you're doing really can shift it. And when you can shift away from always being ready to respond next, you open up the door for much more meaningful conversation, much more ability to have the empathy flow, and for the other person to actually feel seen, heard, and validated, which it really seems to be lacking in these days and times. That's for sure.
Exactly. It's the difference between presence and being present. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And so that leads me into my next question as we're getting closer to the end of our conversation together today. What is it that got you onto the path that you're on today?
Well, like I say, I really think it's been a lifelong path onto this, but having come out of my marriage was a really, really big turning point. And actually, if, in the interest of full disclosure, it was my second marriage. The first one wasn't, I was younger. That's a story for another day. It taught me different things than my second marriage did. There were no children in the first one, so it was much less complicated to move on from. The second marriage, we had children together. And so that really created a whole nother level of, I guess, just complication in general and challenges to overcome and things to learn and to figure out, and how to move through that in the best possible way, I guess, for everyone involved. I mean, my focus obviously first and foremost was on my children, but also just learning through that journey how important it is that I actually care for myself. It's, I know, the much overused like oxygen mask sort of metaphor, but the big realization I had was I was completely content, if you will, to stick around, be the martyr, be the buffer, and do whatever it took so that my kids could be happy. What I didn't realize was that in order for them to have the best shot at happiness, I needed to figure out how to create it and how to live it and how to show it. Because let's be real, kids do not listen to what you are saying. They just hear Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. They don't hear it, but they do see you, and they do see what you're doing, and they do, they're more likely to do as you do than as you say. So, you've got to care for your own soul, your own heart, your own passions and desires. You need to give yourself that love so that it can overflow, and that you'll be in the best position to, be a good mom, run a successful business without burning out, have a successful relationship with other people. And that is not like necessarily only limited to romantic relationships, right? All interactions with other people that you're going to interact with ongoing is included in that. So learning to love yourself, setting those boundaries. Boundaries are kind. They tell other people how you might most love to be loved, how you receive love, how you feel and experience love. And that is actually massive wisdom to set that out and to teach people in your life. This is what I need. This is how I want to experience a relationship together. And so that you can actually have a roadmap on how to create that. And I think if we're unclear, if we're not setting those boundaries, if we don't know what we want because we don't feel we're worthy of any of it, and we haven't even stopped to question it, Like my heart just goes out to help all the people with those kind of struggles to realize they're fucking awesome. Okay. They're so awesome. And they just need to see it for themselves. And when you are really taken care of and you really feel loved and you really feel seen and heard and accepted, it's pure magic. That is when the magic comes out. That is when your gifts shine brightly and they are going to lead the way and show your loved ones, your friends, your family, your clients, whoever, the path to having that for themselves. So I started the podcast as a vision to really create an opportunity to share these inspiring stories that they might inspire and empower other women to, learn to love themselves, to do the things that they need to do to feel cared for, and to go ahead and become the alchemist, to create the life, the partnerships, the relationships, the business, the adventure, all of those pieces as they come together to just create the life of their dreams. So yeah.
I'm just loving what you've got to say. And I feel like there's so many different directions that we could go and talk about just all day long.
Yeah.
Because
I could go on.
Building happiness. I never thought, many years ago, I remember that first time I sat down and I was enjoying a cup of coffee that I bought out of the coffee maker that I bought for myself with my money, in the cup that I bought for myself that had the funniest say, Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. Or this one though was turned so that it was you drank my coffee, prepare to die,
Oh, yeah.
But, here I was having this latte that I made at home with the beans and everything. And I was happy.
Yeah.
That moment. And it's being able to remember. And I just got that from, I want to say it was an experience I just had with Tony Robbins. And remember actually is rewiring. When you're able to remember each one of those, it's a lot like our self-talk.
Yeah.
Our self-talk can help boost that happiness level.
Absolutely. And like the way that our brains work, now I'm like going neuroscience geeky a little bit, but it's literally wired in such a way that your experience is filtered by your brain for efficiency to show you and create your experience based on what it thinks that you like. How does it know what you like? It's what you think about, what you focus on, what you talk about. So everything you look for, 1,000 people have used like the never seen that many red cars before until you bought a red car. Now you see them everywhere because your filter has shifted. Now your filter is like, ooh, we like red cars. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere. This happens in every area of life. Think, oh my gosh, everything bad happens to me. Guess what? The filter is now we're looking for anything that can go bad. It's confirmation bias to confirm to ourselves, yep, all the bad things happen to me. Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing is, and the beautiful thing in the last, I don't know, few decades, neuroscience has come a long way, in even in our lifetimes, as far as what they know about how the brain works and how we can rewire it. Because not too long ago, the impression was that once you grew up, that you were a done deal. It was wired, you were done. But now we're seeing neuroplasticity continues on throughout our entire lives. And we get to choose how we want to rewire it. So what we focus on, law of attraction sounds woo-woo, but like the science actually backs that. What you focus on, what you seek, you will find. It is like ancient wisdom. It's not crazy. It's scientifically backed that what you focus on and what you think about and talk about will be in your experience. So if you want different things in your experience, if you want to see and experience and feel different ways, you just got to take it upon yourself and create those patterns.
And I'm going to add a little something to that before we move to the last, to the last two parts of this.
Yeah.
And that is the genetic imprint that comes, into our DNA. So when we heal, ancestral healing is something that I had only come into in the last several months, and I'm seeing it. I'm actually seeing it. The more I heal, the more I'm seeing that ancestral healing taking place. And I'm like, holy shit, it works, And but we don't realize that, and part of that neuroscience that's new and more understood now is that, there's generational DNA imprint of fear and
Yep.
and behavioral traits that come in, that so you might be doing something and thinking something and you're not sure why. It's because it's pre-wired.
Yeah. And we do have like maybe a genetic predisposition. That
Right.
doesn't mean we're limited or stuck to that. So it just needs to be brought to awareness and dealt with, right? So that we can rewire it into a way that serves us and takes us forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on that note, moving forward,
Yeah.
I would love for you to share with the audience exactly what it is that you do and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, well, I've got a few things on the go. So I'll try and kind of cover the bases and kind of talk about a little bit about each one of the things. So, obviously, as you said in the intro, I'm a happiness coach. I have two different coaching offers. I work for the time being entirely one to one. It is my jam. I love deep conversations. I love asking a billion questions and figuring out where we can go from there. I have a few different gifts that I bring into that, as far as being really good at seeing potential people have that they don't necessarily yet see in themselves, and helping people to discover that potential within themselves, as well as bringing the overwhelm down and making it more manageable so that we can focus on the next step. Because we all know that, well, we don't all know, but I'm going to say it so we're all going to know in a moment, that motivation comes when we take action. Clarity comes when we take action. These things do not come and happen to us without effort and action towards them. So a lot of people sit around waiting to be motivated. Take some action. Guess what? The momentum will propel you forward, and that's where you're going to find the motivation. So I love to work with women who are stuck in those patterns, like I sort of described in my relationship. It doesn't need to be relationship patterns, just overwhelmed, stuck, feeling like there's something more or something missing, that they're feeling called to do something else. They're not totally sure how to break out of the current pattern. So rewiring that to become more balanced and more confident so that they can start following their dreams. I also work, it's not business coaching, because I don't think business coaching, like the term business coaching, really encapsulates what I do with my other clients that are also business owners. But it's really that life, relationship, and business package. It is about, becoming the conscious creator in your life, really embracing your unique gifts and figuring out how to, get rid of the rest, avoid the burnout. We don't need to hustle, but how we can really hone in on those gifts and how we can really focus on those next steps to success with ease and flow and self-love and acceptance, and just, really embracing that whole journey. And then, of course, I have the podcast, which is all about sharing inspiring stories of women who have overcome in those same areas of life, business, and relationship, because they're so interconnected. Just as we've talked about here, our experience in relationship has dramatically impacted our direction with our business, right? And our current direction in life and all of these things. So to try and extract any of those one things from the other is just not really possible. So it's really a whole human sort of approach to it. And I just know that these stories are really inspiring, and they're meant to be shared. They are meant to empower other women who are maybe currently enduring some of the similar struggles to perhaps see a path out.
Fantastic. And did you have a website or?
Oh, yes, I do have I have some links. So you can find the podcast website. It is createyourhappy.ca. And as well, you can find me, my Facebook profile. You can find that at coachchristyholt.com. And that's where you can find links to any other stuff. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on all the things. I have another website. But the podcast, Create Your Happy, also you can find on any of the players. And I live on Facebook. I like connecting. Instagram cuts me off in what I want to say, and I can't fit all the letters in there. And I'm long-winded, and I like to really flesh things out when I'm going on a rant or whatever. So mostly on Facebook, and I love I don't know, there's a community feel there, a lot more ability to connect. So find me on Facebook and drop me a message, and I'd be happy to connect.
That's awesome. And I will be sharing those connection points again in
Awesome.
the information when the show is published. And my last question for you that I ask all my guests is, what is one thing you would tell your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, this is a question I sometimes ask my guests too. It's a really good one. I have to say, the only thing that I ever really want to tell anyone ever at any point in time is just how loved they are. And that if they could just accept how loved they are, give themselves the love. If they are not feeling it from somewhere else, that you have the power to give yourself all of the love that you desire. It is all within you. And just knowing how loved and accepted and valued you are, to go out there and powerful too, right? When you feel loved and accepted, and just to embrace that power. You are the creator.
That's awesome. And yes, love, like happiness, starts from within.
Yeah.
It's so important. Such an important thing to bring in. Well, I want to thank you so very much for being here with me today and sharing you with the listeners and with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share. I really hope that it resonated with some of the listeners out there. And, you know, if they can be inspired to just love themselves a little bit more today, like, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you again to you. And I look forward to many more conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Definitely going to have you on my show soon too.
that would be awesome. It'd be nice to be on the other side of the mic, so to speak.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, we're both on the mic, but yeah.
And I want to say thank you very much to all the listeners out there. You're awesome, and wishing you a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Transformational Art with Katana. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and share the link to this podcast with your family and friends. To connect with me personally, please send an email to transformationalartwithkatana@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.